sir.
Who is the one that actually paying the rent? Is it the property manager or the office?
Say that one more time. Who's actually paying the rent, the proceeds? It's coming from the office. You don't have to handle any of the funds. All of the funds are handled through the office, which is nice. Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's great. We love it. Okay, so with tenant screening, the time frame, like I said, we try to do it as quickly as possible because we know the quicker the better. Once they're approved, you can request their lease. They may not be moving in for a week, but request their lease, get it signed. That locks them into the deal. Plus, in certain cities, to be able to turn on the water, they have to have a signed lease, like DeLand. That's a challenge because we require proof that they've turned on all their required necessary utilities, like water, gas, power, whatever's at the house. And so they're going to have that lease in advance to go sign that.
And how long will we hold a property before we'll wait for them to come back? Like they put their security deposit.
2 weeks is the maximum that we will hold a property until they move into that. Okay. So owners have overridden that in the past. We don't like that because it's not making anybody money, and it's more of a liability for us because we're having to maintain, watch the property, whatever. But 2 weeks is what we say is we'll hold it the most. Okay. So, but the quicker you get their security deposit, the quicker you get. I had an agent call me this weekend and say, hey, I'm at the property and they want to give me a security deposit. Is that okay? Yeah. If they don't get approved, it'll get refunded to them. They hadn't applied yet, but yeah, that's not a problem. So, or once they get approved, we would tell them to come in and pay within 24 hours, but it doesn't always happen that way. We can set it up to where they can go online and pay their security deposit. The ladies just need a little bit of heads up for that because they have to enter them into the system to a certain point to give them access to a portal so that they can go in and pay that. So it doesn't happen that often.
So back to the utilities and the lease. If the utility company requires the lease, and we require the utility, what do we do?
So the utility company is requiring the lease to turn on the utilities. Right. Also on top of that, what they usually require is a copy of the power of attorney if we have signed the lease on behalf of the owner, and they usually want a copy of the property management agreement. If it's signed by the owner, they don't have too much of a problem with it. But that's why we want them to sign the lease in advance, because if they sign it the day they're moving in, they'll never be able to get all of those done.
We require the utilities first.
Before handing keys. Before the keys, yes, sorry about that. Yeah, so have them sign the lease, they can take it to the utility company. Once they've given us everything, so proof of their utilities, the lease is signed, their money's in, everything's done, no matter what order it happens in, that's when they get keys, okay? On the date they start the lease. So if everything's done 3 days ahead of time, they can come in and pick up keys the day they're moving in or whatever. Yeah.
Cynthia, how long can we have a power attorney for? Does it run out?
We need power of attorneys re-signed every year.
Every year?
Yep, every year we need a new power of attorney.
Oh, wow.
So typically that power of attorney is running for that particular management agreement term, and it expires after the tenant's gone, which is why we need new management agreements also. The management agreement term period is for 1 year, or sometimes it takes 2 months to advertise a property and then they've signed a 12-month lease. So it's 1 year or until the end of the tenant's tenancy. So if you've got any kind of transition, moving in and moving out, you need new paperwork. Okay. Here.
Cynthia, do we need, if let's say a property didn't rent for a month, 2, 3, whatever, we need to provide a report monthly, to the owner?
We don't really have a financial report to send them.
No financial.
Right.
That they, that the property, we couldn't rent the property or something like that.
Yeah. So if you've got a property that's taken 2-3 months to rent, and sometimes that happens, November, December, horrible times to rent around here. So if we haven't had the ability to rent them, hopefully you're in communication with your owner at least every couple of weeks, or every week. Even if it's just sending them an email, haven't had any showings this week, whatever. If it takes that long, it's either because it's the time of year or the price. So, something needs to adjust with the price. Henry, did you have a question? Okay. Okay.
I have one on maintaining the property. While he mentioned during time period of rental, I've gone to some homes that I can't believe these people put it on the market for rent because it looked like a destruction happened in there. I mean, as you as a property manager, you want to show the home in the best light. I mean, can you get a cleaning crew and then deduct that from the owners?
So if you, I think first of all, part of your question is you go into a property, they want to hire you as your property manager, and it's just a nightmare, disgusting. I would highly recommend you don't take that property, or you discuss it with the owner of what they're going to do before you put it on the market. Because it's just like a listing where once, tenants, I think, are pickier than buyers a lot of times. So, they're going to come in and see it and go, I can't believe you wasted my time. Why'd you show me this? I don't want to live here, whatever. So, yeah. So I would talk to an owner, and I can tell you there's a few agents that can attest to this. They don't even want to do property management anymore because they've taken properties on that they should not have taken, and it's been a nightmare. So it's just going to cause you more headache and pain. The owner's not going to be able to rent the property, so it's going to be a challenge for them. It's going to be sitting there vacant all this time. I would just highly recommend that the property needs to be rent ready in good condition before it goes on the market. So if Jeannie's had this happen before where an owner has sent us money, Jeannie's handled it, so she's gotten the paperwork signed and whatnot, but didn't put it available for rent anywhere. So the owners can send money to deposit into their account, so they each get, an umbrella under their account. It's their funds, and then they'll get a financial report, like you were asking, if they need to paint. And so she's getting a painter in there to paint the whole house, then that's fine. It just won't go on the market till afterwards. We have the funds. Once they fully clear the account, we can pay the painter, do all that stuff on behalf of them. In that instance, if there's money coming in or going out, they do get financial statements.
So if this is the money that is holding in reserve?
Well, if it's an initial owner, we don't have any money in reserve. So if it's an initial owner, they're sending us money.
Okay.
So they're sending us a check. Once it fully clears, which is 10 business days, then we pay it out from their money. So they're giving us money to put in our account so that she has access to hire vendors and approve them to go out and pay.
The management agreement's just not on the market.
Right, the management agreement, all the paperwork signed, it just doesn't go in the MLS, doesn't go in that folio.
What I'm saying is Jeannie's not handling the funds. We're giving the funds, turning it over to the office, and then the office is dispersing.
So yes, and the process runs the same way. Yeah, so the process runs the same way. So she's going to get the invoice, she's going to initial off on it, give it to the office, and then they're going to go through, upload it so that the owner gets a copy of it, and they're going to pay it out because the property manager has approved that payment. Okay?
Explain to them about if the owner wants to use their own contractor versus our contractor.
Yeah. So thank you. We have a list of approved vendors. As you know, it's on our website. It does change. A lot of times, well, I shouldn't say a lot. Some of the times those vendors are just contacting us wanting to go on the list. So we may not have experience or know them. But either way, if they've gone through the process, they've given us all the documents that are required, we've got them approved, they're going to go up and on the list, okay? And at that point only, we will use them and can pay them. If an owner has their own vendor that they want to use, we have zero part of it. We don't communicate with that vendor. We don't hire that vendor for them. We don't go out and meet the vendor at the property for them. We don't do anything with that. We cannot be a part of that, period. So they either have to use our vendors or they're going to do it on the side on their own. I can tell you the instances where we've had a few owners that said, I'm going to hire my own people, I'll do it on my own, have been a nightmare. Nightmare. Unfortunately, I will say there is a vendor right now with a local company in town that is being heavily sued because they hired somebody as a vendor to go out and to work at a property, and less than a year later, the vendor handyman guy went back and murdered her, robbing her. That happened right here, very local. Yep. Really? So, yep. So we are...
Flooring person, right?
Yes, so we are responsible for our vendors, and that just sinks it in that, because they linked them back and said the only way that those two people knew each other was through that hired connection. So everybody that we use, and I really, really like to use companies, if you find companies that do background checks on their employees. So you'll see sometimes AC companies will do that. They'll provide, we've background checked all of our employees, or we're bonded or whatever. That means they've added extra protection, which again just adds that layer of protection to us as well. And we're all liable for this stuff. So we want to limit that down as much as possible.
Couldn't the owner get their contractor approved?
Yes.
I mean, if they just on the approved list?
Absolutely. If the owner says, I really want to use this company, they can go through the approval process. Now, we've had companies in the past, we've only had one that I can remember that refused to sign the documents. They wouldn't give us their stuff. But I believe now they're an approved vendor. Jacobs? I don't know.
I think
Yeah, it took them.
Give you his stuff?
Took them. They wouldn't join on with us for over a year. Yep, you tried. Yep. So, but as long as the vendor can get approved, and what that means is they're properly licensed, they have insurance, and so by properly licensed, and they're going to sign our vendor agreement. Properly licensed is sometimes they only need an occupational license, but if it's an AC contractor, if it's a roofer, if it's a plumber, they have state licensing, and so we need a copy of that as well, and it's got to be current. And luckily our system helps us know when all those deadlines pop up and come out. So don't always assume
until we check their insurance.
Yeah, and don't always assume either that because they were a vendor, they're still a vendor. Because sometimes they never send us renewal paperwork, so we drop them off the list. I mean, insurance changes all the time throughout the year, so we can't just say, oh, by September 30th, everybody's renewed their insurance. Everybody has different renewal dates. So, and sometimes we'll get a notice in the mail that they've dropped their insurance or their insurance has dropped them, and so at that point, they come off. Okay, so check on that. Yes, sir.
If we hire somebody who's on the vendor's list and something happens on a property, would we be held responsible since we hired them?
So if something happens at a property from a vendor on the vendors list that we've hired, are we responsible for them? I guess the question is in what manner. The ultimate end goal is if the owner's not happy with what they did or whatnot, ultimately it's between the two of them. We're still going to be caught in the middle of it. But, ultimately the owner, we were hiring on behalf of the owner, and the owner is the one who got the work done. It just depends on the situation. That's correct. Oh, we're not out of any liability for sure. But ultimately, the way that the law works and the way that our vendor agreement works is that the owner is hiring the vendor directly. We're just helping through that communication. We're still fully liable for everything we do. We breathe and we're liable. That's pretty much the way it is.
How do you sleep at night?
I don't sleep much at night. Yeah.
Sleeps very little.
Okay, so when we go through we were back on tenant screen, but one more thing I want to mention is the move-in money. We were talking about when they're approved and moving them in, all their move-in money has to be certified funds. So they have to pay by money's order, cashier's check, stuff like that. We would love it. It would be great if it was split up. So in other words, they had $1,000 in security deposit in one check and $1,000 in rent in a second check. That's great because our bank doesn't split the money for us, so we have to go through this huge internal process to do that. But if they can't, they bring you a check and it's for $1,800 and everything's together, that's fine. We will handle it. It just takes us a little bit longer to go through that process of depositing it, transferring it, moving it, and whatever to stay in compliance.
Usually the security deposit is separate.
Yeah, the security deposit, anything that's going in the tenant account can be on one, and anything that's going in the owner's account, like rent, can be on the other. So typically that's security deposit and rent, first month's rent. But either way, if you can't do it, we understand, but we would prefer that if you have the ability to get your tenant to do that.
Is pet deposit with the security?
We don't charge pet deposits, just to clarify, we charge a pet fee, which is non-refundable. Anything non-refundable goes directly to the owner, so it's like rent. Okay.
Separate that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that can go with the rent.
Just you can go with their rent.
We don't charge pet deposits, we charge pet fees, which is non-refundable. A pet deposit is refundable. Anything with a term deposit, cleaning deposit, pet deposit, security deposit, it's all bulk considered the same under the state of Florida guidelines. It's all deposit money that's owned by the tenant and can be returned to them at the end of the lease. So, but we charge pet fees right up front. The owner gets the money. That goes in just like rent. It's non-refundable. So we send it right to them. That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. So if there's damage, that's right, then we claim it as a security deposit. That's just the fee up front for allowing them to have the pet. Okay. If they do get denied, we do send them an adverse action notice. So they will receive a notice that allows them to get a copy of their credit report free in the next 60 days by contacting the company. Understand they're not always denied based off of credit. If they had an eviction, if we had a sexual predator that didn't understand why he was denied and we couldn't really tell them, or the wife or whatever. But
there's a wife.
Yeah, didn't know her husband was a sexual predator. But anyways.
Oh, you can't
tell them?
She called us nonstop for 2 weeks. We cannot tell them why they're denied. They can call and get a copy of their credit report, but we cannot give out the credit reports to anybody. The owners are strictly prohibited from seeing them, and we cannot give them to the tenants. That's against federal law. So no one will be getting those credit reports, including you guys. Nobody.
So the tenant won't even get a copy as to why they're being denied?
They can get a copy directly from Experian. Okay, but what happens is what we see from their credit report is very different than what a consumer sees. If you pull up your freecreditreport.com or whatever it is, it's very different. It's basically the same shell, but it's very consumer friendly, soft, whatever. Ours, the big fat number this big right up in the top left is how many negative reports they have. That's the first thing they show us so that we can see, oh, okay, we need to look out for these. And then collections and then whatever. They get to the good stuff at the last, you know? It's the opposite for consumers, and there's a lot of stuff in there that they'll tell you how to do better and improve your credit and whatever. Not the same type of credit report that we see.
So what is it that's telling you that they're a sexual predator?
Comes up on their criminal history.
Right.
It's all one report because we do resident screening, so it's all one report.
Right.
We have everything built in together.
No, but they won't
Yes.
see that.
Yes, but what the consumer gets is only their credit report. That's the
So
challenge.
it's not gonna tell her that he's.
Because evictions and criminal history are in public record. They can go look them up at any county courthouse.
But you're gonna do.
But we, hold on, we pull them all as one report in ours, but it's against federal law for us to share that with anybody.
It's public record though, I'm not understanding here.
The credit report is not public record.
No, the other part that's telling her that he's a sexual predator.
Ours is one record.
Okay,
We can't give that out.
but you can tell her, go look this up at 800 blah, blah, blah.
No, we will not do that.
Tell her.
No, we won't give them any reason whatsoever. Trust me, a sexual predator, he knows, he's been arrested, he's registered.
She doesn't, and so
But that's, well, she should have done a background check on her husband. We're prohibited from doing that. We cannot tell them why they're denied. And I tell you, unfortunately, we've gotten to the point where we don't tell you guys a lot of why they're denied.
don't.
Because
find that out, I would not be able to.
that's what we've had.
I'm telling you, I would go straight to that woman and say, you need to divorce this man and shoot him. Like,
We've had a couple of customers that have come to the office and gotten very irate and disgusting. We've had to file restraining orders against some of them. Yes. So we don't get into that. We don't tell them. They can contact and get their credit report, and they can figure it out. And by then, they're getting it a month later. Maybe they've moved on and found somewhere else to live. So, Jeannie, do you have a question?
I was just gonna ask, so you don't notify him separately why he didn't, so it's just.
No.
Well,
Yep.
yeah,
Everybody that applied gets a
that's
notice,
something
but
to figure
yeah.
out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Brenda.
So maybe the appropriate way to phrase it to either the tenant or the owner might be, maybe you want to go back and check, or refer them back. I mean,
We just tell them that.
specific.
We just tell them when they're denied, we use a third-party screening company, first of all. We always like to tell them that so they don't hate us, yes. We use a third-party screening company.
Which one is that, or which one?
We have, we use it through Experian. Or, it's Experian, yeah. It's Experian that we use, which is one of the credit bureaus. So we tell them that we use a third-party screening company and they did not meet the criteria of our resident selection. So that's it. Yeah, most of them know, because a lot of times the sexual predators or offenders, they'll write us like a whole page note of why they should be approved beforehand and send it to us. And we don't want to waste their money. We can't approve them, period.
I have found it very helpful to just show up to the showing with the resident selection criteria.
That's what I just
Cynthia said, just let them
Even
know.
good to have them
The
initial.
background information is not done by our company.
Yeah.
So if there is an acceptance or rejection, it's not through us. And that just clears everything up right there. A lot of times they look at the sheet and say, okay, thank you, because they already see something here. Right. That doesn't.
Yeah, and again, that's just going to save you time and them. So.
Who's paying for the credit?
The tenant, when they make application, they're paying that $50 application fee. So when they pay that online, that's what pays for it.
What you do, you're using only one credit card, that's it, is that correct?
That's all anybody pulls, yep, is one.
Ours is like pretty, I think it's like actually the harshest
Yeah.
one. I mean, it really, I think they do a lot more thorough investigating than the other
Yeah.
two do. The
Yeah.
other two main ones.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think
we could, maybe on that last page where they sign, add a separate line that says, I have read the resident selection criteria.
Ooh, I like that.
On the application?
Yeah,
Okay,
I like
maybe.
that.
Can you write that down? And I'll look at that. I don't know how much of that we have the ability to change, but we can look into that and see if we can do that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
With qualifying the,
And that way, if they give me or Kathy any problems.
Yeah, okay.
with qualifying the tenants, what if they don't have established credit but have the income? Is by
So-
them not having established credit?
We don't have a minimum credit score. We don't do anything off of scores. So it's not necessarily if they don't have credit. Income is the first thing we're looking for. So just because if they say, well, I don't have credit, I've never, bought a car with credit, whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean that's
Come back
bad.
with NA, non-applicable, because I don't have anything.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that doesn't disqualify
Nope, doesn't
them.
disqualify them. And that's why, again, foreclosure, short sales don't necessarily mean that we will deny them either. That's fine. They have to rent somewhere. So as long as they meet the other criteria.
And if you have roommates where one have an eviction and one doesn't?
They're all treated the same. So if you have two roommates, they both have to be approved to be able to move in. Or if this one's approved, this one can move in, but they probably need to find another roommate. They may not be able to approve just the one though, because they may not have the income to qualify. They may need both people for the income.
So if the first one have the sufficient income where the second one doesn't, the second one has some bad stuff, we may be able to approve them?
We may be able to approve one, but not the other.
Okay, so the second one can't live there?
Nope.
Can't live there.
Oh.
That's right. Yeah, yes, sir.
What's what you guys charging for the credit report?
$50 is the application fee that they pay online when they apply. So,
Okay.
Jeannie?
Yeah, that's why you guys, that resident selection criteria is really important to have at your showings for your rentals, because that way you're not gonna waste their time or your time, with them looking at it, because they know if
They know right away.
Yes.
That's why they have to be approved.
And then sometimes if there's a special situation, and I hope it's okay, I've had them call Kathy and Tammy directly to ask a certain question before they put in an application, because I can't make that determination. And I hope that's okay to do that.
Yeah.
I do have the one question where, you have the 18-year-old with the 17-year-old girlfriend and the crazy parents get crazy and fine him and cause him to have that terrible name for the rest of his life. Is that something that you all look at as far as like?
If they're convicted of a crime, that's what we're looking for. There's a lot of people that are arrested. Arrested doesn't mean you're guilty until you're convicted. So if they've been convicted, especially in a case of sexual predator or offender, a jury has found them guilty. So, yep, if that jury felt that they found them guilty, it's not for us to go back and rejudge. So, yep. Yep.
That's all about that same thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Times
That's why you're glad that your son's older.
That's what happened here.
Yeah.
Stupid like that.
Okay, so the move-in money has to be certified. The security deposit is what we need to hold the property for 2 weeks. So if they want the property, but we're holding it off the market for a certain period of time, we don't take it off the market until we have money. So we need that security deposit, okay? Otherwise, it's still...
The owner has to override it.
Right. If it's over 2 weeks, the owner has to override it. Okay, so who decides if pets are allowed? This is always an owner's question, but owners need some direction in this, because some owners will go, yeah, we had a dog. I don't care if we have a dog. Dogs are fine. We have a list of certain dogs that we don't allow, and on top of that, owners don't understand that when their policy is, their insurance policy is for the tenants to be able to be there, a dwelling policy. I haven't found a single dwelling policy yet that automatically includes pets. Any type of pets. So usually it's a rider that they have to pay additional for to be able to have a pet there, a dog, and a lot of them are going to ask specifically what kind of dog it is, because they're going to not want certain dogs. We do have a company called dogbitequote.com. What it is it is a company, and it's in our manual here too. You can look it up, but it's basically a we've been moving right along. There's our list of all the dogs that we don't allow. However, and owners do need to verify if their insurance allows pets and what kind. Owners can deny pets if they choose. The only thing they cannot deny is a service animal, which is not considered a pet. Okay.
And no pet fee.
And again, there's no pet fee with service animals, nothing. They have to be there. Everybody has to allow them insurance and everything. But they can go to this dogbitequote.com if the owner allows it, and the tenants can purchase insurance directly through that. So it's insurance on the dog. They name the owner's additional insured, and they name us as additional insured. So we haven't had any problems with that because we've never had to use it as far as a claim. But if the owner is okay with that, you know, and they have a boxer, they might be able to go there and get that if the owner's all right and allows that. So that's like an owner override type situation. Okay. Yes, boxers are on the list.
I thought you said we never lose my house. Now, Cynthia, what happens if...
Right, but what it says, so the Total Realty and the owner also reserve the right to deny any other breed not on this list, because we've had some odd ones come up every now and then. But this is the ones that we do not allow. And then if they want to do this, if the owner allows it, they can go get that dog bite quote, dog bite quote, any of them. They cover every type of dog.
But no, I mean, the owner can let them stay and we're okay with that.
As long as we have insurance that covers us, yes. If the owner allows this, if the owner allows it, it's up to the owner. So you can't tell them, yeah, you could have a Rottweiler.
We could never find insurance before.
Right.
Until we finally found it, so now
Now, what about service dogs?
Even if the owner allows.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, we'll take that out. Because right here, yeah, tenants can purchase insurance if the owner allows this. The owner in Total Realty Corp must be listed as additional insured on the policy. We have had a couple of owners that have done that, but again, and we have the insurance policy in place, but we have not, thankfully, had to ever claim or use that. But we need the policy just in case.
Now, what about a service dog? Because they fall under the same requirements as far as getting insurance if they're on this.
Nope. Anything with service is considered an animal, not a pet. So if it's a dog, a cat, they've got birds. There's quite a few different. There's even snakes. Yeah, guinea pigs. Yep. So, did you hear now? They were talking this morning on the news about something that is so that children can sit there and read books to them.
Oh.
And they're just like a companion. So, service animals never, ever, ever. We can't deny based on a service animal. We can't charge a fee based on a service animal, and neither can the owner. And their insurance policy has to allow the service animal.
So
but
some kind of paperwork that
That's what I was going to ask, because if you have a snake, how am I prove
there's no regulated paperwork for service animals. So sometimes we get a picture of a card that has the service animal information. Sometimes we get a prescription. Sometimes we get a 75-page document of all the training they've had. There's no one simple form like a HUD statement, you know, where everybody uses the same one. So we do ask for proof of the service animals. Sometimes that scares people away. Yes, they do that part of it.
If their dad was in it, he writes a letter saying that his daughter is a service dog.
Yeah, yeah, it needs to be, yeah, she said that if the dad's a dentist, can he write a letter? It's got to be a prescription from a doctor, so.
That's a big loophole, because I had someone call
There's a lot of loopholes.
and said, oh, I can just get my dog named as a service
It's a little
dog.
bit,
Yeah.
they don't even take a picture with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of loopholes with this. It's something that needs to change, but for right now, it's what it is. If they do have a service animal and they move out and the dog has done damage because it's chewed the baseboards or something, we can claim for the damage. Okay, we just can't charge a fee up front. We can't raise the rent based on that. Nothing. It's like the dog's not there. Okay. Okay, so requesting a lease. You've got the tenant, you found out that they're approved. Speak to the tenant, find out when they're going to be moving in. You're notifying the owner, then you're going to request a lease. So you're going to fill out the form. We have a lease request form. Fill it out completely and make sure that you put all the info there. And then again, make sure it's clear if it's a management or if it's a placement, because they're different leases. And we can send that via electronic signatures. The property manager would sign the lease or go over the lease on the phone with the tenant. So you don't just want to electronically send it to them, have them sign it, and send it back. You want to make sure that they understand the rent's due on the 1st. I like to tell tenants that there's expense with this property associated with it, so it's very important that they pay rent, because a lot of tenants think, wow, if somebody owns this house and they don't live here, they live somewhere else, they must be rich. So I like to tell them there are expenses here. it's very important you pay your rent on time because the owner has, overhead to pay for that or whatever. So, but just make sure you go over it with them on the phone. We always, the rents are always due on the 1st of the month. We always prorate the month. So if they move in on the 20th, they're only going to pay 10 days, but we flip-flop months. They have to pay a full first month's rent up front. There's several reasons for that. So they pay the full first month's rent when they move in. They pay the prorated amount the second month, or they can pay it all when they move in, that's fine. But one, we want to make sure that we have enough money if they never pay another dime that the owner can evict them. Okay, because if the owner's only gotten $200 for a week's worth of rent, evictions are going to cost $500 or more. So that's one big reason. The other reason is we want to be able to claim our fee, and typically, again, it's not going to, sometimes still even with this, we have to wait and put it out because there's been expenses to get the property move-in ready or whatever. But we want to be able to get enough money to claim our fee out of that, or not claim it, but reserve our fee out of it. And it usually sets up enough for the reserve account for the owner.
On the lease, it has that the rent includes garbage. Can that be taken out? Because in the city, it doesn't include the garbage because it's their water.
It varies.
Okay, so let me answer your question first. In the it does include garbage per the state of Florida in every county. Garbage is included with your property taxes. So garbage is included. However, if they live in city limits, the city has the right to add on garbage. See, what the city used to do, when they would do this, they would add garbage on and put it as a line item, but they would offer garbage pickup a second day. So you would get 2 pickups during the week. They cut that out, and so now the city charges you for garbage and they don't do anything additional. What you're paying for is through the county. Yeah, but there's no way around that. So okay, so maybe on the lease we want to remove garbage. Yeah. Can you make a note of that too? Yeah, and so I could see where that would be confusing with a tenant. All right, we'll look into that. Okay.
Additional for services offered by the owner, is that for us to enforce? Like my lovely tenant on Sutton Island, the owner offers pest control.
Yeah.
So we have a little sticky thing on the refrigerator. If you need it, call it. But she expects for me to call when she needs the service. How is that handled?
So in other words,
she wants to know where does the property managers...
Yes, the property manager would handle all of that, typically, because what happens is now you could set up the pest company in that instance. If the owner's paying for it and it's included in the lease, you could set up the pest company to come out quarterly or monthly or whatever and just have it on an automatic schedule. But most vendors will not allow the tenant to call them directly. We prohibit that because we don't want them ordering work that hasn't been approved. So that's why it has to go through the property manager. So that's very clear that you're going to get the bill, you're going to sign off on the bill before we pay it.
She's already paid it. If she's already paid it, it's something that's already taken care of.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I mean, this is something that she's already paid. And
is it a company that will come out as many times as they need to within the year?
Control. They come out 4 times a year and call if you need us.
Okay, so you pay an annual fee up front and then they can come. Yeah, she could call directly if she needs that. That's fine. It's the processing of approvals and getting the money where the property manager needs to be involved. So if she's already paid that up front, it's there, that service is there. The tenant would just need to call the pest control company whenever and schedule them to come out.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay. All right, so moving the tenant in, what's needed? We need pictures and we need inspections. So typically when you take over a property in the very beginning, you're gonna manage it, you go in, we want pictures and inspection and stuff. It may be 2 months, it may be 2 weeks before you rent it. We need a move-in inspection for that specific tenant because maybe something has happened or changed between when you took the property and when the tenant actually moved in, and we have to have pictures and an inspection documented right before the tenant moves in. If you don't wanna do your inspections, we have a company, it's listed on our website, that you can contact, and he's a home inspector. He will go and do an inspection for you for $50 for the first one, $20 for each additional one that same day. So really reasonable if you don't want, if you're out of town, you don't have the time, whatever, that's a great resource for you to use.
And you take pictures too?
He does, yep.
So do we do that inspection sheet when we take it and again when we put them in there?
Correct. got to have pictures just before the tenant moves in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They have to sign a
They don't have to sign anything.
I mean, if they get, if they move in within a week of you doing that.
Yeah, I'd say week is probably okay, but what you don't want, courts always side with the tenant. Always. So you want as much protection as you can, because if you have pictures and an inspection from 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I've seen a judge throw out the security deposit claim from pictures 2 weeks prior to when they moved in. 2 weeks ago, I mean, this house could have, there could have been damage, there could have been this, there could have been that. So maybe within a week. I wouldn't go any more than that.
100 pictures of a house with an inside of 10 minutes. Right.
Yeah.
Really?
And video works too. Yep. That's, like I said, we've learned a lot from the REO business. So.
And especially like with the, I would just suggest with the ACs, always just make sure you get the connections. Not like you're taking a picture of an AC, but if somebody steals the piping from the AC to the house, always want to do a side photo that you can see everything.
Thank you, Lisa. So I always take a side photo of the AC to see the copper. Good. Yeah. Good. Beverly?
I also wanted to share something that I ran into, and my daughter was very understanding, but when I did my move-out inspection, took all the pictures and so on, and then the new tenant moved in, you could understand why the AC just kept coming on. And when we looked further, everything was fine in the garage, but the previous tenant had cut a hole in the to cool the garage as well. But it was done, it looked so professional and whatever, it was never known.
So, yeah.
And even though it was in the pictures and so on, neither I nor the owner noticed something.
But that's why pictures can help you when you've got situations where tenants go in and alter things. If it's not visible to your eye and you don't catch it, then again, when the owner's looking at it, they may not catch it either. So how are they going to come back and hate you for not catching it when they didn't either?
Notice that anyway. I mean, that
Yeah.
a year ago. How would I remember that vehicle wasn't?
And that's what's key. We may not have been in the property for 6 months. How are we going to remember what it was? So you have to cross compare your pictures all the time. And we do that with security claims. When people come and they go, well, I'm not sure what to claim. Well, let me see the before pictures and let me see now. And that's going to be a surefire way of how to, Sonny.
On the tenant move-in checklist, do you get that immediately, or do you just let them have it and wait for them to, do you walk away?
It says like 5 days.
Yeah. So you can give it to the tenant at the time the tenant, you're talking about the tenant move-in inspection. And they fill it out or don't fill it out. It's for their protection to fill it out. But you give it to them with their paperwork at the time they sign the lease or move in or whatever, and say, here, fill this out, we'll store this in your file, and this will document what the condition of the house is. If they send it back, you need to review it always when they send it back, because they may note something on there that you haven't seen, you weren't aware of. It may need to be addressed. So the outlet in the third bedroom by the window is not working, or something like that. Those are things that we don't know because we don't live there. Now they're living there. We need to address that. So you want to make sure that you're reading those, looking them over. If you have a big difference between, they say the carpet's all stained up, it's blah, 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 I would just write yourself a little note out to the side of it that, have photos to show that the carpet is not stained, disagreement with tenant or something like that, so that it's, because those inspections will be part of it. Lisa?
I just want to, not that I want to go long on this, but I would really strongly encourage as many photos as possible. Because when I go shoot a house for REO, I take every room, every wall, the ceiling, the floor, maybe 6 pictures per room. I'll open the cabinets, take interior cabinets, plumbing, thermostats, because, your memory isn't great. And if you go in 2 weeks later and there's a stain, sometimes I've been like, oh my God, is that is that new? Is it not new? So I go back to the photos. The original photos will always have every square inch of the house, and that way you don't have to rely on your memory.
Yeah, your photos are definitely the best documented. Okay, let me move on. If you have questions, write them down, because I think I'm going to hit on a lot of these as we go. Okay, so moving the tenant in, what's needed: the pictures, the inspection, proof of their utilities, a fully executed lease by all the parties, and their money. So everything needs to be done. At that point, they can get the keys and go, okay? Options for how the tenant can pay. Once they're moved in, they can mail us their money, so they can write it out in a check or money order or whatever and mail it to us. That's our our least preferred method because things get lost in the mail. You know, we do have a drop box here and at our offices. All of our offices, they can deposit rent, you know, pay rent anywhere that they want, but we would prefer them not to bring it to the office and not to mail it because, oh, well, I mailed it last Tuesday, and you know, it's an excuse for them. It can become an excuse. They can pay online, so tenants can get a portal, they can have access, they can go in and pay online, they can set it up where they go in every month and pay, or they can set up recurring, it's up to them. But again, we need their email address to be able to log them in and send them their tenant portal access. That's very helpful because they can also do work order requests from there where it goes in and requests, and it sends it directly to the property manager and their office, and I get a copy all at the same time. Sunday, for instance, I got an email where it popped up. I just happened to look at my phone and it said that our house is flooding with water or something. It was something about it was flooding and they didn't know how to stop it. Why they went online and submitted that is beyond me versus calling. But anyway, so I texted the property manager, made sure I called her, and then I texted her and said, hey, check your email. We've got, you know, a situation with water damage. So anyways, you know, within a couple minutes, she responded back and was on it and taking care of it. But, you know, they can submit those 24 hours a day. It's for us to discern what's an emergency versus what can wait till Monday morning. You know, a lot of them come in over the weekend and at night, but so they can do that through the portal. That's a big advantage. They can also pay at 7-Elevens or Ace, which is not the same thing as Ace Hardware. Ace locations are down in Orlando. I think they're also like a gas station. But for them to be able to pay at 7-Eleven, they can pay with cash at 7-Eleven. That's how they pay. They can pay up to $500, $1,500. Okay, $1,500 at a time, but they have to get a barcode from the rentals department first. So they would be moved in as a tenant. If this is an option they're interested in, you can request it or they can call and request. They have to print out a barcode for them and send it to them, and then they can use that barcode over and over and over again. But that's how, when they pay at 7-Eleven, they scan the barcode. That's how it associates, okay, they just paid $750 for this property. That's how they link it to the tenant and the property. They have to have the barcode. There is a fee that they pay for that. Is it $5? $350. Okay. So to be able to go and pay, and that's 7-Eleven gets that or whatever. You know, that's an option. If it's closer for them and they want to pay with cash, they don't want to go through a portal, you know, whatever, that's another option for them to do. Okay, so how...
Question on that. If their ACH transaction is denied several times, do we handle them as like with a check?
I cut them off.
Yeah. If they get denied multiple times, we can turn them off from paying online. So that's another important reason to know if you're going through an eviction, you need to notify them. They can turn off the ability for the tenant to pay online because you don't want to accept rent, maybe, you know, because they could go on and pay $100 for the rent and stop your eviction. So you want to be able to cut that off. So yeah, they have the ability to turn it on and off. The tenant, go back to your question, what was it?
If their ACH transaction is denied.
Is denied. Yeah, and we've had that where tenants have tried multiple times and then they need to, so they're, if it's denied several times, they get notified, we get notified, so they know immediately if it's denied, and they're still considered as non-paid to us, and they need to pay us.
Okay,
and
so
one of the other
walk in
methods.
with the funds.
I actually email them and tell them that this is like your second NSF check. I usually give them one for free, but not for free. I still charge them for the NSF, but I let them buy once. And then the second time I send them an email and tell them you can no longer make payments online. From now on, we'll only accept a cashier's check or a money order from you. Period. Okay. That's it. All right. Cut them off.
So she's notifying them after the second no-go, and then they have to pay elsewhere.
Because, I mean, if it's in the lease that all of these options are available to them, and then they say, well, for my lease, I can pay online.
Yeah, we don't have the specific options in the lease. What we do tell them in the lease, I don't have a lease, but what we do tell them in the lease is that anything past the date, so our rents are due on the 1st, they have a 3-day grace period. On the 4th, they're late. So they have the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd to pay without being late. After that, we kick in the late fee, and they have to pay by certified funds. We cannot accept a personal check after that. Or they can pay online, and that is in the lease.
To 4 days. We just changed that recently.
What?
To 4 days.
4 days. Yeah, they have till the 4th to pay if they're in trouble.
Oh, okay. It's 4 days, 1, 2,
Right.
okay, I got you.
Yep.
Oh, all right.
Five,
And they have to leave it 2 days is what you're thinking.
So it's,
Days after their first.
so it's a 4-day grace period, first, second, third, fourth, on the 5th they're late, okay.
Exactly.
Glad she knows what's going on. Okay, so how do the owners get paid? The owners get paid once we receive the funds and they have fully cleared the bank. Depending on the way that the tenants pay, depends on the time frame that it takes to clear. ACH, so anything paid online through a direct draft from a bank account is ACH. That's 3 days by federal law, 3 banking business days, whatever. The personal checks are 10 business days, so that's why typically if they're paying at the first of the month, we can't disperse funds until the middle of the month. So it's about the 15th that we do, depending on if that falls on a Saturday or whatever. You know, it's around the middle of the month is what we tell them, that they receive their funds. There's nothing we can do about that. That's the escrow rules and regulations per our state and some federal guidelines with time frames of clearance of funds. So that's just the way it is. Nothing is immediate, period. So credit cards, we had a credit card return back on us 27 days later that it bounced out. So it's you know, they do have the ability to pay with a credit card. There's fees involved with that, and it tells them those fees right up front when they're paying. But you know, we try our best, but sometimes it even goes beyond the time frame of the middle of the month.
But you do them all at one time. You don't.
We do owners' funds, we disperse owner funds twice a month. We do it in the middle of the month, which is when the majority of the owners get paid, because the majority of the tenants we hope have paid by the 1st or, you know, around that time. And then we do it again at the end of the month. So typically 30th, 31st, somewhere in there. Yep, we do it at the end of the month for those stragglers who may be paid on the 12th and we don't have their funds cleared by the 15th. So we'll pay them at the end of the month. So we're doing it twice a month, the middle and the end, okay? All right. So when they're getting their money, like I said, sometimes it's going to be delayed. If your tenant pays late, you're going to get a 3-day notice. You're going to get a notice from their office that the tenant hasn't paid. You need to turn around and notify your owner, because that could delay their money. And of course, they're sitting around expecting their money at the middle of the month, and all of a sudden when it doesn't come, they call us up screaming, "Why didn't my property manager tell me?" So that's damage control we have to do because you haven't communicated. And that's really all you have to do is communicate with the tenants and the owners. So make sure you let them know that. Again, the security deposit, they don't hold the security deposit unless if it's placement. If it's placement, then they get all that. We send them a package after the tenant has moved in. Everything's done. We have the funds ready to go. We'll send them a package with a copy of the lease, a copy of the checks, and you know what's included in there along with the letter, and send all that to them, so they'll get that, you know, before the second month. Yep, how the tenant contact information, who they know who they are, and all that kind of stuff. So expenses that come out of the owner's account. If there's any kind of expense that comes out of the owner's account, we have it in our property management agreement that they have the ability, I think it's 350, okay, thanks, 350, we can pay up to $350 of expenses on their behalf without getting written approval from them. So in other words, if they have a lawn service that comes every month and it's $100 a month, we can go ahead and, as a property manager, you will receive the bill and you will sign off on that, then give it to these ladies. They will upload it into the system and they will get the vendor paid. We only pay vendors when funds are ready to pay. So we can't pay them on the first day of the month. If the tenant just paid, we have to allow the funds to fully clear before we can give funds to anybody. So to any of the vendors, to the owner, to us, all of that stuff has to clear through. So yep, twice a month. Okay. So the vendor, so you're going to have to approve and sign off that it's okay to make the payment before the payment can be made. Payments are made once those funds are available. Okay.
You can pay up to $350, but if our reserve is only $200.
Then that's all you've got. We raised our reserve in the new management agreement, but just because fees and prices are going up, and we hadn't changed that in 10 years. But if you don't have the money, we can't spend it. So if you're concerned, every once in a while we have an owner that doesn't want to leave a reserve with us, I tell you the best thing is to walk away from that owner, because you have no control to manage the property and it puts you in a very precarious situation. Because you know the tenant's calling up going, septic tank's backing up all in my house, it's an emergency. You have no way to help them. You don't have emergency funds. That's really what it should be called instead of reserves, is emergency funds. So
the other reason for the also get another property management agreement signed, is it's new. It raised the reserve to 300, not 200. So that kind of gives you a little extra cushion.
Yeah, and we have, so the reserves went up to 300. The amount to spend without prior owner authorizations, 350. If you do go over that, you have an owner who has to replace an AC unit, it's going to cost $5,000. The best situation there is to have the owner call directly to the AC company and pay over the phone with a credit card. Because anytime the owner sends us funds, we can't disperse it until it's fully cleared. So now if they send us a check, we've got to wait for it to clear the bank, then pay the AC company, and they don't like that. So they just won't do the work until they can be paid, or deposit or something.
Oh, Henry, getting back to your question too, if the tenant paid, let's say on the first, second, or third, whatever, I pay bills before I pay anybody. The vendors get paid before we get paid, and then after I pay the vendors, then I pay us, and then I pay the owners with whatever's left. So if it happens within like the first, 14, 15 days of the month, the funds are going to be there. You're going to have the full month's rent that the tenant paid available.
So the vendors get paid first, we get paid second, the owner gets paid third, which is why sometimes when there's a big expense that came up, $500 to replace carpet or whatever, we don't get paid until the second month because there's not enough money because we had a larger vendor bill to pay, okay? And that happens every now and then. It's not very often, but it does happen, so. Okay, so.
What's the amount of emergency funds that we do have?
So we're holding in the repairs 300.
You can put as much as you want. You can do 500.
Some properties we have raised the repair reserve because the property was either in very bad condition, the AC was 18 years old, so we knew it was about to die, and the owner needed help budgeting the money, something like that. Jeannie had an owner that was trying to put in a fence, and so we kept raising the reserve to pull back. It's like a minimum balance in their checking account, so it was pulling back the money. On a typical one, it's $300.
Okay, but don't we get it first in the beginning from the owner?
You can get it from the owner directly in the up front. Most people don't. They wait and have it deducted out of their first month's rent. I tell you, I would prefer to get it up front from an owner. I think that'd be better because again, with raising the $300 mark from $200 to $300, they're not getting anything the first month's rent, and the second month we're still having to pull and raise up that reserve on some properties depending on the price range.
Prorated the second month.
Yes, so it could take us it could take us till the third month to get that reserve built up before the owner gets anything. So yeah, it's if you can get it up front, that'd be great.
I have a question on that. Kathy, I have an owner that's overseas, so all the repairs she handles herself, and we have a leaky roof, and she hired a vendor, she paid him $5,000, the roof is still leaking, the tenant's sending me photos, and what is our responsibility there when the owner is not able to get there?
This is one example why we don't like owners to handle their stuff, because the owners, if they don't handle the stuff, it puts us in a very high liability situation. Our management agreements have the ability to fire the owner, and if we feel that there's a liability that they're putting us in. If we have an owner who won't take care of mold, if we have an owner who won't take care of a leaky roof, that's going to lead to mold, that's going to whatever. So we need to talk about that and put them on notice that they need to repair this within this much time, or give you the authorization to have it repaired, or we will no longer be able to manage their property. That's what we need to do.
I think this lady got ripped off too.
Yeah, she spent $5,000 and
nothing.
Nothing.
And that's,
we can't get in contact with the gentleman.
That's tough because if she's out of overseas, then
Did she not use a licensed roofer?
I don't know who she used because, like Cynthia said, she
her.
hired the person herself. She lives in Spain.
And she didn't even tell you who she is?
No, I've just been communicating with this gentleman through texts, and he stopped answering my texts, so I don't know who he is or what. And
I talked to her, maybe try to look him up. Call Channel 9 News. I'm kidding. Just kidding.
yeah. What I did is I emailed all the correspondence to Kathy to let Kathy know what's going on in the photos,
And that's fine. If you ever want to carbon copy or blind copy any of us, that's fine. That is good. That means we'll document it and put it in the file. So.
Yeah, you guys can send us emails, send me an email, and I'll copy it and I'll put it in Appfolio and in Seagate.
Yeah, which is a backup driver we have. Yeah.
So, so I have an excellent owner.
Excellent owner.
Who likes to take care of his stuff.
Good.
He just wants me to tell him what their problem is.
That is the best kind of owner you'd ever want to have, is somebody who just wants you to tell them what to do and they'll do it.
And
or allow it.
He doesn't, you know, if they call me on a Sunday for something that's not an emergency, he wants me to tell him, and he don't want them to have to wait.
Right.
But he wants to
have control of it.
He has control of all the repairs.
Oh, so he wants to do the repairs.
Or have it done.
So Denise, you can give her some advice. It may work out great now, but again, wait till he goes on that cruise and you can't get in touch with him. Then what do you do?
He tells me if he's gone. I always know when he's gone.
Okay.
He's a pilot.
Okay.
He's like, you know, if you can't get me, use whoever you have to use. And
so that may be the best way to do it. If you can't get in touch with them within so many hours or so much of a time frame, you're going to take care of it and address it. But those type of agreements aren't the way our management agreement's written, so you just need to kind of maybe document it some other way or whatnot.
But you would have to have reserve to be able to take care of it yourself.
Yeah, that's another problem. If you have an owner who thinks they can do the work and they can't themselves, but
I only have 2 owners that I deal with, and both of them find me some wood.
Well,
anybody else.
and that brought up a good point for me. Any property built prior to 1978, you have to use an EPA certified contractor on. Sandra knows her husband's an was an EPA certified. Yeah. So you have to use an EPA certified contractor. If you don't use an EPA certified contractor and you get flagged, the fine is $37,500 per day. If you're the agent that hired that vendor, guess who's responsible for that? Yep, you are. So make sure, so we have on all of our folder files, which we're not really using folders as much, but we are still using, we have a big sticker that says built prior to 1978 to flag us that you need to use an EPA certified vendor on that. The owner is not allowed to do their own work on properties built prior to 1978. I'm not allowed to do anything on my properties that are built before 1978, even though I'm the owner, because I'm not an EPA certified contractor. I have to hire.
3 or 4 on our vendor list.
And they're noted.
So it has to, so the vendor